Hello and welcome to the Present and Awesome Summit. I'm so excited to be here on this Thursday night with Kara Joy McKee. Hello, Kara, welcome.
Hi, Elissa. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So just because I got to do the introductions, my name, if you're just tuning in now, is Elissa Weinzimmer, and I'm the founder of Voice Body Connection and the host of this summit, which is all about having conversations about how to be present in different parts of our lives and careers and talking to all sorts of people. And Kara Joy, I'm so excited to have you here today because we're going to talk politics, because Kara Joy McKee, in addition to having a really diverse background in business, is now running for Tulsa City Council District 4, if I'm not mistaken, right? District 4.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is most interesting about what we can talk about tonight is that you've been going door to door to all of your future potential constituents, having conversations and being present with everyone. So it is an honor and a pleasure to get to have this conversation with you about your experience, about politics in the United States, in the world, in Oklahoma, and welcome to the summit. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start with going back in time. Give us any sort of background that it would be helpful to know about you, to know how you got to this point and why you're running for office and what you're doing, right? Why you're doing all the things you're doing right now.
Why am I doing all the things I'm doing right now?
If it feels like an existential question, then great.
And that's good. You know, I have a friend on the campaign who actually recorded me early days when I decided I'm going to do this. And the other day she texted me the audio that she recorded in that first week, and all my exuberance of why I want to do this, why it matters. It was perfect. It was perfect. Laura Bellis, if you're watching, it was perfect. It was perfect to remind me exactly what it was that leapt up inside me when I decided to do this. But in many ways, I think my whole life has been preparing me for the potential of doing something important. I didn't always know it was politics. And I think like a lot of people, I've felt for a long time that politics can be kind of icky, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. My parents did their best to instill in my sister and I a strong sense of right and wrong, what is ethical, and how we are supposed to help the people around us. We grew up in a situation where there wasn't always enough. I know that my parents sometimes sold their worldly possessions, things that they, had in order to buy us things that we needed that as kids, that there were opportunities they wanted for us that they couldn't give us. But I also knew that there were people in much worse situations than I was. And I knew that because my parents were always striving to help everyone around us. And the openness that my parents had is really what has driven my whole career, I think. While as a kid, I was annoyed when they would talk to strangers at the gas station and whatnot. Now, I think you and I met because we're the kind of people who just jump in and start talking to the stranger who looks friendly, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. That is pretty much accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of adventures. I started out studying botany and anthropology. I love people. I love plants. I'm an avid gardener. And I wanted to look at, how do humans interact with the natural world and how can we do this even better? And one day I was given the opportunity to do extra credit in a basic level poli-sci class. Go to a city council meeting and you get extra credit. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. And I trudge up there and I go to the city council meeting. Oh my gosh, it's the best. It is the best soap opera in town. I had no idea. I had no idea that I cared about city council, but they were talking about bike lanes. And in my 20s, my bike was like another appendage. I was riding constantly. I didn't even own a car. And I got up at miscellaneous discussion and I said a little bit about what mattered to me because I could. Why not? Okay, let's, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I went up there and I spoke. And this happened a few other times. I started bringing friends with me. And before I knew it, the mayor had asked me to be on some committees. And I'm like, me? I'm just a little college student. And she said,
in Tulsa, or where was this?
This is in Norman. Pardon me.
That's okay. At the University of Oklahoma.
Right. Just south of Oklahoma City, the University of Oklahoma. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I ended up pulled into this world that I never expected, and learning a whole lot about the foundations of our society and the ways that people pool resources and collaborate to make things work. It opened up a part of my mind that I didn't even know was there, and this new way of seeing everyone around me. I shifted my career and ended up working in local food. I managed a statewide online farmers market for years. That was fascinating.
Cool.
And yeah, the most diverse group of people you can, I mean, like very conservative rural farmers and very liberal hippie urbanites, and everyone came together, put their differences aside, and moved all of this fresh fruit, produce, frozen meat, cheese all over the state. As volunteers, as member owners, it was a cooperative effort, and it was fascinating. It was so interesting. Wow. Yeah, I loved it. And I worked at homeless shelters. I've been the executive director of nonprofits, Kindle Whittier Incorporated here in Tulsa, with 2 community gardens and a food pantry. And once I was here in Tulsa, I felt this drive to do more, to really help the whole state. And I was given the opportunity to work for the Oklahoma Policy Institute. Oklahoma Policy Institute is unlike anything else that exists in Oklahoma. And it's not an exaggeration to say that OK Policy has helped shift the conversation. So I became involved with OK Policy just when OK Policy was pushing back against that idea, that political idea that we should abolish the income tax. And while Brownback in Kansas went for it, Oklahoma decided, hey, wait, let's not do that. I was able to join the effort of people from all over the state to say, let's think about how do we actually ethically fund the core services that matter to us. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I mean, if you've seen the teacher strike on the news, which I think everyone saw this year, Oklahoma teachers walking out, for the last 5 years, that's the world I've been living in. Of trying so hard to get our elected officials at the state level to pay attention to these really painful situations that are happening, not only in the schools, but in all the corrections officers in the state-run prisons, the DHS workers who are on food stamps, SNAP, so many other state workers who haven't had a raise in 11 years, and all of the people on the disabilities waiting list, waiting for in-home health care. So many things in Oklahoma that completely go against what Okies believe. I proudly call myself an Okie, although I know some older folks in Oklahoma still take offense to that term. I spend a lot of time, like I say, trying to be present with those legislators and get them to hear their constituents and actually want to hear their constituents, and with their constituents, trying to get people like you and me to feel our own internal power and our ability to be a part of the process and say, this is what is happening. You're supposed to represent me. I need you to hear what's happening with my family.
Yeah. Okay. That brings us to
that's up to today.
So great. I can feel that bringing us up to today. And I have so many questions coming up for you, but let me first ask you the question that I've been asking everyone this week who's on the summit, which is, presence is kind of this nebulous thing that I think can be defined in a lot of different ways. Sometimes people go Eckhart Tolle with it, and sometimes people go like, like being on a stage giving a TED talk with it, right? So what does presence mean to you?
Mm-hmm. I first started learning about the idea of presence in my teens when I met some kids at school who were the children of hippies who did a lot of meditating. And in that state, presence was this awareness of myself and my surroundings that could kind of step out of the mental chatter that happens for all of us. I feel most present when I'm able to comfortably be aware of my own body and also what's around me, and present, in the context of of being present with someone else for me is this openness where I can actually hear what they're saying without immediately trying to decide what I'm going to say next. Which is super hard. While I can meditate on my own, being present with someone else can be very challenging. One thing I've loved about your course so far is having very practical techniques to get my body in the space and my mind in the space where I can be present with someone else.
I love it. Well, I think,
answer? Yeah,
it's a gorgeous answer. I love it. And I think part of the reason I wanted to have you on the summit is because I think you so fully embody this. I mean, you're literally putting yourself in a state all day long. And as we were debriefing the other day, I was asking you how things were going. And I'm like, that must be exhausting, because I know that we all know that the experience of being present with ourselves and the outside world at the same time, and then doing it all day with people that you don't know, can be really, really exhausting. So I definitely want to hear more about how you're doing it and how it's happening. But what a gorgeous answer. Okay, so talk to us. Let's go there. Talk to us about what it's been like to go door to door in this district.
Yeah. District 4 in Tulsa.
Tell people about it who don't even know at all Oklahoma.
And I love maps. I actually had a special made map for this election so that I could really see in detail what is around me. District 4 is all of downtown Tulsa, and a big chunk of Midtown. So a lot of the suburbs that were built for the workers in the oil fields and the working class people working in businesses in downtown, all of that spreading out right here in the middle of Tulsa. It is, I made a survey on my website. I've never seen a politician do a survey, but I thought, if I'm going to represent people, I actually want to know what people want. So I've been surveying since January, and I've been creating little word bubbles from the words that they say. I ask, what are 4 words that come to mind when you think about District 4? And diverse or diversity comes up in the top all the time. It is the Greenwood District, what was once called Black Wall Street, down to Maple Ridge, which is around the Philbrook Arts Museum, a world-class museum, big, beautiful homes. Then, as I mentioned, working class neighborhoods like my own, Kendall Whittier, which was once one of the first original suburbs of the working class folks that were working in the oil fields, as I mentioned, which is now a working class, largely Latino neighborhood, and everything in between, the State Fair, so much right here. And so what I'm finding when I'm going out and I'm knocking the doors is, one week I'm going on doors where people's porches are crumbling, and they look like maybe they're not as healthy as they could be. Maybe they're having a hard time. Maybe they're a little bit harried, and they're asking me, can you help me figure out where I could get a better job?
Okay.
Yeah. And then the next week I'm going to another neighborhood, a beautiful fairy tale neighborhood where people are like, azaleas. We need more azaleas. And I love azaleas.
Oh my goodness. You just gave us such a beautiful juxtaposition of what you're experiencing. Okay. I'm with you, Kara Joy.
Yeah. And I need to be present, completely present with both of those situations. And with everything in between, in order to make sure that I'm staying present, because I've had a lot of interactions with politicians that I felt like weren't present, weren't aware of what was actually happening with their own constituents. So I started volunteering at schools. Once I started campaigning, I started volunteering at a soup kitchen downtown called Iron Gate. Making sure that I was aware of what was happening with the constituents, the potential constituents who weren't going to be able or weren't going to be comfortable even voicing their concerns to me. And also going to all the neighborhood association meetings and all of the events that I could go to, and really listening as much as I could to what was happening, so that when I'm out there knocking the doors And as so often happens, someone feels a little stumped. And, you know, I ask, how do you feel about Tulsa? What is it like here for you? And they feel a little stumped. And, oh, I don't know, I like it. And I'm like, are you easily able to get around town right now? And then they're like, oh, let me tell you about the roads. And you know, it starts, or I saw that you have this sign in your yard that says, watch out for kids on bikes. Or I saw this sign in your yard that said, support public schools. Tell me about that. So being queued up in advance to be present with what I think might be going on with them, but also being really agile and ready to adjust to whatever is going on with them. Because every door that opens, or doesn't open, but every door that opens is going to be different. One house, people are so excited and saying, oh, sit right down on the porch and let's talk about it. And I want to tell you all about things. And the next door might be someone it's Sunday, their only day off, they're really exhausted, and they're like, I don't have time for this right now. And I have to be able in that moment to not take it personally. If someone needs to shut the door and just say, thank you, have a nice day. Or yes, let's sit down, let's talk about this. I'm going to take a deep breath and just be here with whatever you've got going on. It's helped to have a notebook, taking notes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and processing and taking time when I get home to actually process what was said to me. Because if I just jump right to the next neighborhood, it's not going to sink in the same way. I won't be as present with, I feel like there's a component of presence that happens after the fact. Like if you're truly present with someone, you absorb a certain amount of what's going on in that moment. But ideally, parts of what have happened have you know, resonate later on. I lived in Ecuador for a year. I was an exchange student. That was 10 years ago. And to this day, I still learn from that experience.
Wow, yeah.
I was present in something that was so different from what I live here in Oklahoma. When I go out to DC to visit my mom, or New York City to visit one of my best friends from high school, and try to be present with that. And then I'm back here in Oklahoma, and my heart is kind of, you know, bouncing little pings off of the other experiences I have. So being present is being here with myself in all of what I am. And I want to bring that to everyone in Tulsa. I want my potential constituents to know that I'm listening to them, not because I say I'm listening to you, I care what you think, but that they can actually tell that I've heard what they said and it matters to me. That's what, yeah, I think that's what democracy is supposed to be. I know we're a republic, but we're a democratic republic. I think that's how it's supposed to work.
Well, it's interesting because hearing you say that, it just lands for me in such a powerful way in connection to politics, but also all of these different fields that we're talking about this week in the summit. I really think what you've just summarized, which is both giving yourself the space, but then also not paying lip service to the idea of showing up to be present and listening, but actually truly doing it. It's what transforms every situation. Like it's just as human beings relating to human beings, whether it's on a person-to-person relational level or whether it's on a socio-political level, it is very painful not to be heard. Yeah. It is, and I'm going to turn this into the next question too, but I will say, I think it's very painful not to be heard. And when someone is actually hearing you and present with you and listening, it's a transformative experience, right?
Yeah, it is.
And the fact that you are clearly from your heart endeavoring to bring that into the political world in Oklahoma, which is, this is what I want to ask about next, is if you can help us understand, for those of us outside of Oklahoma, which I just came here I've been coming back and forth, but I just landed officially in Tulsa in March. And so I'll just share a little bit about why I'm here, which is that I've always had, my context has been the coasts for my whole life, right? I grew up near San Francisco. I lived in Los Angeles. Granted, I lived in Edmonton, Alberta for a little bit because I was going to grad school there, but it's a different country. So it's not exactly the same thing. And then I was living in New York, and Mike Bosch and I were talking about this during our conversation yesterday about how some of the work that he's doing is all about blending the consciousness and the business practices of the coast with the center of the country, because I think a lot of people, obviously there's a lot of rhetoric around the idea that the center of the country is very separated from these intellectual centers on the coast. But my lived experience of being here is that Tulsa, Oklahoma is an intellectual center as well. And it is, and not just intellectual, it is, there is community here, there is heart here, there are people of all different, so much diversity, just like you say. And of course there are issues around the diversity and how to make things more equitable. But okay, so I'll stop talking because that's my experience, but I want to hear from you, which is, can you help people understand who aren't here how Oklahoma is a reflection, like in terms of a microcosm of the larger United States politics stuff going on, or even just, you know, the socio-political reality of the world we live in?
Sure.
Does that make sense as a question?
Yes, it does. Talking about Oklahoma is one of my favorite topics. So yay.
Great. Go ahead.
Yeah. Whenever I leave Oklahoma and I'm on the coast, my little sister moved to San Diego. My mom moved to DC. I've gone to many conferences on the coasts, and I've experienced some of that. Sometimes new friends on the coast say, Oklahoma, what's there? And I'm like, I'm there. You don't know me. But
I'm there.
I'm there.
Lots of other people.
Right. Oklahoma, for a long time for me, I thought of it as this land of untapped potential. We were the 46th state. That's pretty late in the formation of the United States. We're still a baby in many ways. And we're also a place where many people were pushed when they weren't wanted other places. So after emancipation, there were flyers going around all over the Deep South proclaiming the possibility that that Oklahoma could be an ex-slave state, a Black state. There could be communities here where people were safe from the, what later became Jim Crow in the Deep South. And so for a while, Oklahoma boasted the largest number of all Black towns in the United States, more than 60.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as many people know, it was also the landing spot for the Trails of Tears. It's usually called the Trail of Tears, but there were many trails because there were many tribes coming from different places. My husband's family, part of his family are Cherokee, and they came from in Alabama near Georgia, or actually, no, in Georgia near Atlanta.
Okay.
And landed here, brought all their possessions with them. The women literally sewing seeds into their skirts so that when they got here, they'd have something to plant to grow food. We're growing heirloom seeds right now in the garden. I'm very excited about it. The Trail of Tears beans that are growing up the outside of my house right now.
Wow.
It's significant.
Yeah.
And then ancestors like my great-grandmother, who at the age of 16, found herself climbing on a wagon train with her 2 small children in tow as a widow. She was coming, a 16-year-old widow with 2 kids, coming to Oklahoma, trying to start a new life, trying to find a way to make a better life for herself and her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren like me. The people who came here were fluid, whether they were fleeing to Oklahoma or going out, searching for new adventures or being literally shoved here, all had a lot of hopes and dreams. But Oklahoma's kind of rough. The indigenous people that were here at first were nomadic peoples, following first the woolly mammoths and later the bison herds. It wasn't the kind of place you settle. The plains can be a difficult place to really cultivate, whereas East Coast tribes like the Cherokee, Choctaw, Seminole and others who could do more kind of intensive agriculture and whatnot had a challenge with that in Oklahoma, as well as any homesteaders that later came as Oklahoma was becoming a state.
That makes sense. I actually had the experience when I felt the winds at one point, like a month or so ago. I went, whoa, that song from the musical is not kidding. The wind comes whipping down the
plane. It's right at ya.
Can we call Tulsa the Windy City? Because whoa.
Yeah. It is. It's very windy.
Yeah.
Tulsa is the confluence of many winds from all over the country, but we have a fairly high pollen count in part because of all the winds coming from all sorts of places.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tulsa has been an area a little different than the plains of some of Oklahoma in that, you know, it's hillier here, there's rivers here, there have been people here a really long time. And the legacy of what happened with the people who were here, who came here, who were then pushed out or who were oppressed or who were uplifted, all of that has gone into the history of Oklahoma is still, I feel, very present in the lives of the people here. There are intergenerational traumas, no doubt, and there are also deep sources of pride, knowing that we are the people who made it through the Dust Bowl. We continued on when things were really challenging. My grandmother, oh, the neighbor's gonna mow the lawn now. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
My grandmother, before she passed away, wouldn't eat a single turnip because she ate turnips all the time as the daughter of a sharecropper during the Dust Bowl here in Oklahoma during very tough times. This is the place of Woody Guthrie, where he jumped and rode the rails and ended up in New York. You know, there's so much heart in this place. And yet what I have found, and in my job with the Oklahoma Policy Institute, my job was to go all over the state, to places that I had only seen on the weather maps. And let me tell you, if you're an Okie, you know the weather maps because you know when the tornadoes are coming. You've got to watch. While it was terrifying as a child, now I find it exhilarating and I miss it when I leave, honestly. But right, maybe you'll get there eventually. And I go to, you know, the other metropolitan areas, but also all the little towns around Oklahoma. And what I found is that time and again, people wanted the same kinds of things. We want safe communities and good lives for our children to do better than we did. For everyone to not just thrive, but have meaningful work that matters. And, you know, good, healthy food and all of the things that human beings want. And also, we have a lot of people who don't feel like they are part of what matters. You know, not to get partisan, I'm running a nonpartisan race. I used to work for a nonpartisan policy think tank, but Oklahoma is seen as one of the reddest of the red states. That is how Oklahoma has been voting in presidential elections, which is when people look our way most often, except for the teacher walkout. Thank you, teachers. Most people don't vote. And the people who vote, usually we have straight party voting. They check the box. And it votes all the way up and down the ballot for them. They don't know who they're voting for if they're voting most of the time. If they do know the actual name of the person they're voting for, it is extremely rare that they know how that person is voting on their behalf. And if they do know how that person is voting on their behalf, they've almost never talked to them. There are so many degrees of separation between most Oklahomans and their own political power. And the agency that they really do have is often going completely untapped. That's true at the state level. Most people know more about the federal level than anywhere else. That's what our news covers. And it's even more true at the city level. Yeah, if you think about, say, a family, and you want to have a healthy family, one of the components of having a healthy family, you have healthy individuals in that family. If you want to have what is a state made out of? A state is made out of all the little towns and municipalities. And if you want to have a healthy state, you want all of those towns and municipalities to be healthy. Oklahoma City and Tulsa are the biggest municipal areas in Oklahoma. And that's why I'm running for city council, because I know that if we can do it here, if we can get over some of the pains and we can continue to nourish the innovation that is happening, and we can bring forth our creativity and bridge the divides and communicate well, then that can have ripple effects all over the state. And because it's so challenging here, I think that if we can get over some of the challenges here, it can have ripple effects all over the nation and maybe the whole world.
I just want to breathe with that statement. It's gorgeous, and I'm really in awe of what you're representing and what you're saying. I'm just aware of the time and that it's about time to wrap up, but I hope it's okay with you if we go a little bit longer.
Certainly, I'm here as long as you need me.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's just, wow, it's really powerful what you're saying. And especially, I'll go ahead and represent us coastal peeps, who I think it's just very powerful to understand on a more personal level what's happening in the flyover states, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Just to really get a pulse on that, in terms of that is the lifeblood, that is what's happening in our country. Like there's so many, like you say, headlines every day about 45 and the federal administration, et cetera. But to me, the implications of what you're saying about us getting present with each other on a local level and turning to each other and having compassion and empathy and listening to each other, and then letting that ripple is what's going to change the tide.
Yeah.
And having someone like you use your time and energy to run for city council is, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm honored to be able to do it. You know, the last few years have been hard and scary for a lot of us, both because of what's going on in the nation and the world, but in Oklahoma, as the world has seen now, I mean, we're last in the nation for teacher pay, and first in the nation for incarceration of women and men now. It's been women. We've been first in the world for incarceration of women per capita for years, and now men is up there as well. Yeah. There are a lot of Okies in very, very deep pain. But what I've seen time and again, when a disaster strikes, when we know what to do, we do it. And, you know, I mean, I know that New Yorkers saw that during 9/11, when everybody's pouring out and coming together and having that blessed community that Dr. King talked about. I saw that in Oklahoma City when the Murrow building bombing happened. I was 16 years old, and my mother was a family therapist. And so she was called on to be there at a church just up the hill. And the church was receiving donations for the families of those who were lost. But mostly what we were doing right there is waiting with the survivors who were waiting to see what happened with their loved ones. Because the floodlights were shining on the building and the firefighters were still picking through the rubble. Oh my God. And I handed a cup of coffee to a woman who was waiting to see if her sister was still alive. And I, you know, the likelihood was really low that she would be. But I knew that there were people all around her who were going to be kind and who were going to try to help, because humans at our best, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. Absolutely what we do. And if we can break down some of these barriers, whether they be political barriers or racial barriers or whatever, and see each other as humans, there's so much potential to evaporate that loneliness, to make sure that when I'm knocking on a door and I'm meeting an 88-year-old woman who seems like she hasn't seen anybody or talked to anyone face to face but me all week, that's something we can fix, that we can do something about that. Or some kid that goes home to an empty household every day and doesn't have anyone to help them learn how to read. We can do something about that. Humans have figured these things out. Yeah. A lot of it is coming up with the community will, or, you know, the political will, or, you know, just the societal will, the individual will, to step forward and be a part of the solutions. And I have full faith in humanity that we can do that. I've seen it happen again and again right here in Oklahoma. I know it's happened other places. I'm cautiously optimistic, but more than being an optimist, I see myself as an optimalist. I know that we have the ability to take the energy within us and do so much. And I'm here to encourage and to educate and to learn and to empower and be a part of the solutions. So
it's also inspiring. And it makes me think too about part of what happens from my view, you know, studying how humans work and how bodies work and everything, is that when we are flooded with these headlines and when we're thinking about the whole nation instead of our neighbor, our nervous system gets so overwhelmed. Like it's just at a level that we can't process.
yeah.
Whereas, like you say, when we're face to face with the 88-year-old woman, like there's actually something Elissa, can do about changing that reality.
Yeah.
I don't know how to change what's happening behind closed doors in the Oval Office. And I think all of us are, you know, feeling bent over backwards and so stressed out about that. But we can turn to each other and create the change in the way that our human nervous systems are able to actually process and handle by being present with each other and letting there be a flow of energy and a give and take back and forth, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, Kara Joy, it's a joy to talk to you. I will say that. You have anything you want to just close up with and say or offer as like a vision or a hope or a dream for the future?
Yeah. I'm so grateful for this opportunity because I know you have people watching this all over the place. And I'm hopeful. While I know that having a globalized society is really scary, I'm hopeful for the opportunities we have in the future to really hear and understand each other over great distances. And at the same time, compare and contrast the ways that we can hear each other over really short distances. There's so much that we can do. There's so much that's happening right now. And while the 24-hour news cycle doesn't always show us the best of what's going on, I hope that, you know, I know this seems scary, but I hope that in this election year, everybody gets out and knocks a few doors.
Okay.
Not just for me, like actually go and meet a few of your neighbors, pick a candidate you believe in.
Yeah.
Go meet a few of your neighbors and have an authentic, present conversation with them about what it means to be a good politician and to have government that is actually we the people. I am finding that being on the doors is a boost in my faith in humanity, and I hope that everyone else will get out there and experience that this year too.
Well, that is a really concrete wish, and I think something that we can all stretch ourselves out of our comfort zones and do. I personally, suggestion received.
Yay!
I'll set the example with that one for sure.
All right.
Amazing, Kara Joy. Thank you so much. And by the way, tell us all when is election day so that those of us who can vote for you can vote for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my primary, it's nonpartisan, so it's a jungle primary. All candidates in at once on August 28th. August 28th, that's the date, August 28th. And either one person will get more than 50% and that person wins and we're done, or the top two candidates go on to November. But I hope that everyone is registered to vote by August 3rd and then get out to vote on August 28th. And you can check out my website, kj4tulsa.com. If you've ever been to Tulsa, take my survey. It's the How's Your Tulsa survey. I've had people take it from all over the US who just have something that they want to say about what they think of Tulsa. So, and I split out the data so I can tell who are my potential constituents and who are just, you know, tourists and whatnot. KJ4tulsa.com. Yeah, you bet.
Amazing. All right, you guys, let's do her survey. Let's get out and knock on some doors and meet some neighbors, and let's change the world. Sounds pretty simple.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. KJ, thank you so much again. It is such an honor and a pleasure to talk to you.
It's a pleasure to talk to you as always. Thank you.
Good luck with everything, and we'll check in.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks to everyone who's been on the line. See you tomorrow for the last Present and Awesome interview with Ashley Feinstein-Gersley, which is about presence and your money, another really big, awesome topic.
Yeah.
So see you tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern, and thank you again so much for tuning in. Bye.